Welcome, everyone. My name is Shahar Sadeh, and it is my esteemed pleasure as the director of the Resilient Cities program and the faculty engagement program at the JCRC of New York to open this exciting event today and host two wonderful colleagues, Anat, Ehud, and Meredith Mcdermott, who will be our speakers for today, moderated by Oren, Pizmony, Levy. Both speakers are leading the role of enhancing and promoting the nexus of sustainability, climate change, and public education in two amazing, vibrant global cities, my two personal favorites. And there are many reasons why we at the JCRC team Tel Aviv and New York City in a joint learning process. These are global cities located at the beachfront, smart and technologically driven, with a dynamic high-tech community, highly diverse and inclusive, and so much more. For the last 4 decades, the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, as a local organization, has been working to create and solidify relations between New York City and Israel. But more importantly, it has been working to promote social and communal resilience here in New York. It has been incubating initiatives to create leadership networks for solving common problems, has sustained diverse networks, has empowered and has been empowered by the diverse community of the city, and finally served as a focal point for community actions in times of crisis. Our new normal forced cities and organizations to think and rethink their operation, get creative and innovative. And this is one of the reasons that we launched the Resilient Cities program last year, with a great admiration to our local government experts and an even greater will to enhance our engagement with them and expand our urban networks. One of the main engines of cities, especially when thinking of long-term social resilience and sustainability, is their education system. Those are the platforms that create leaders, engage and inform future and current citizens, as school serves as an immediate and direct channel for information, informal education, and communal engagement. Resilient cities are defined as cities that have the ability to absorb, recover, and prepare for future shocks. Schools, and we have seen it well throughout the pandemic, even if critics were so much louder than those congratulating the resiliency of these systems, served as support mechanism and as conduit for some normalcy. And climate change, unfortunately, serves as yet another major challenge that schools need to relate to, prepare for, and educate about. It brings questions both about the physical spaces schools operate in and the intellectual educational mission they carry. With this, I want to introduce our speakers and our moderator for today's event, and also thank our co-sponsors for the event, the Center for Environmental and Sustainability Education in Seminar HaKibbutzim, the Porter School for Environmental Studies in Tel Aviv University, and the Center for Sustainable Future at TeachersCollege, Columbia University. Anat Ehud is the Director of Environmental Education at Tel Aviv-Jaffa Environmental and Sustainability Authority, where she leads the development, guidance, and implementation of environmental education program in elementary and high schools in the city. She also leads active informal environmental programs and activities for youth in the city. Prior to that, Anat was a Deputy Director of the Center for Environmental Studies in the Council for a Beautiful Israel. Anat has a PhD from the Kahn Institute for History and Philosophy of Science in Tel Aviv University. Meredith Mcdermott is the Director of Sustainability for the New York City Department of Education, overseeing programs such as New York City Solar Schools, Zero Waste Schools, New York City Demand Response Program, a school sustainability certification program, and extensive training programs for educators, sustainability coordinators, staff, and students across nearly 1,900 schools. Prior to New York City, Meredith directed sustainability efforts for Chicago and San Diego public schools. She has a master's degree in environmental management and marine biology from the University of Queensland in Australia. Professor Oren Pizmony Levy is an associate professor of international and comparative education and the director of the Center for Sustainable Future at TeachersCollege, Columbia University. His scholarship centers on the intersection of education and social movement and focuses on international assessment of students' achievement, environmental and sustainability education, and sexual orientation and gender identity education. He's a co-leader of research practice partnership between TeachersCollege and the Office of Sustainability at the New York City Department of Education. Oren earned his PhD in sociology and comparative and international education from Indiana University. With that, I want to turn to our first speaker, our moderator, Oren Pizmony Levy, and let you know that the event will be concluded by 1:10 New York time or 8:10 Israel time. And if you have any questions, just drop them on in the chat box.
Thank you, Shahar, so much. And what an honor to share the stage with the three of you. Tel Aviv and New York are two places I call home. And for me, it's a wonderful opportunity to be part of this. So thank you so much. And again, I want to remind our audience, and just to say, we have more than 80 people on the call already, which is a wonderful thing in the middle of the day in New York and in the evening at Tel Aviv. So thank you for joining us. And I invite you to add your questions throughout the presentations at the chat box. And I will use it later on when we moderate the discussion. So let me use the time to frame a little bit the discussion of today. So the panel of today is looking at climate education in global cities with the two cases of New York and Tel Aviv. It is important to remember, even though I'm sure most of you know, that climate change is here. Climate change is one of the greatest existential threats of our time. Not only does climate change endanger the sustainability of the planet, it also amplifies social, economic, and environmental inequality between and within communities. On the screen, I'm showing you the stripes of climate change, a visual that is now very common in our field. The stripes represent the world's average temperature in every year since the mid-19th century. Dark blue years are cooler and red ones are warmer than the average between 1971 and 2000. The visual is very clear. The cumulative change jumps out. The world is hotter than before. Climate change will affect schools and schooling. In one way, you can think about how climate change and the way it's devastating infrastructures will create shutdowns and lockdowns in schools, like we saw in the pandemic. Another way, you can think about research coming out recently showing how heat waves are affecting human cognition and how we can actually learn. So in different ways, climate change will affect schools and education systems worldwide. The question we are trying to address in this panel and other type of work we do at the Center for Sustainable Futures is to ask, what is the role of the education sector in response to climate change? One might want to think about transportation in education, how we bring kids to schools. What is the impact of this massive transportation system on the planet? Others might want to look at the facilities. What are we doing with the roofs of the schools, and how do we use them, better use them to produce new energy using solar panels? How do you use these solar panels to educate kids, parents, and the communities about renewable sources? Third group might look at the education sector and look at the schoolyards. How are we using the schoolyards to address issues like heat islands in the city, or using or repurposing schoolyards as a way to address severe weather like rain, etc. Educators, like the one we are going to speak with today, are also focusing on what is happening in school, teaching about climate change, teaching about the solutions, the causes, and the social implications of this phenomenon. In our center, we found that, at least in the US, Americans endorse climate change education. 78% of American adults said in a recent survey we conducted that it is important that elementary and secondary school students learn about climate change. And patterns similar to this are shown in the Yale climate communication studies as well. We can think about climate change education and situate it within the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN that were published in 2015. These 17 goals help us to think about what the world, the international community, and each of us in our organizations and agency can do to promote sustainability worldwide. Specifically, the case of climate change education speak to SDG 4 about quality education, SDG 10, reducing inequality, SDG 11, sustainability, cities and communities, and SDG 13 about climate change. The specific panel today also speaks to SDG 17, partnerships. And that's one of the reasons that I'm really excited about this panel, because even in the conversations we had prior to this event, we already see how much the two cities can learn from each other. So as we are listening to the speakers today, I want to point us to a couple of focal points in the stories of New York City and Tel Aviv-Jaffa. One, think about the stories we are going to hear in terms of organizational boundaries between what is education, what is facilities, what does it mean to be insider and outsider when you're trying to promote climate change education. From the stories today, we are going to learn a lot about agency and how individuals are thinking outside of the box, innovating and leading a big systematic change in order to promote solutions for climate change. So I'm going to stop here and invite Anat to start with her presentation. Thank you so much, everybody.
Hello, thank you, Oren. It was very interesting. Thank you all for inviting me to speak in this event. Really excited. And I want to just start by sharing my presentation. Okay, so I asked to talk about a little bit about climate education in Tel Aviv-Jaffa, and I wanted to start a little bit about Tel Aviv itself, just a few words about Tel Aviv for those who don't know it. Tel Aviv is the most populous city in Gush Dan metropolitan, and second largest city in Israel, located on Israeli Mediterranean coastline, with population of almost 466,000 residents on 52 square kilometers. It is the economic and technological center of the country. Tel Aviv has adopted sustainability and strategic approach to municipal management. Sustainability and environment protection are incorporated in the update of strategic plan, zoning guidelines, and in administrative structure under responsibility of the municipal Deputy Director General. Tel Aviv-Jaffa is a member of leading global network engaged in environmental issues and sustainability, the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, 100 Resilient City, and of course, C40. I'm a part of the Environmental and Sustainable Authority, as Shahar presented me before, and Tel Aviv-Jaffa municipality. And the Environmental Authority protection was established approximately in the late 70s, early 80s. Its area of responsibility include overseeing and monitoring pollution and pollutant, environmental planning and environmental education. In recent years, the authority has also coordinated activities related to sustainability, including food and climate policy. Our work continue to expand, embrace diverse fields and reach new partners, shape and cultivate green and sustainable Tel Aviv-Jaffa. Our department, actually, it's called the Unit of Environmental and Sustainability Unit, operate according to the 10 principles of sustainability that appear in the urban sustainability symbol, as you see above me, approach known as One Planet Living, which aim to reduce the ecological footprint by working in holistic approach. In fact, the unit is composed of coordinators and directors of those various fields who work with each other in close and complementary manner, as well as partners with other municipal departments as a professional knowledge center. The connection with the community is maintained and strengthened by sustainability coordinators in 10 neighborhoods in the city as part of Sustainable Neighborhood Program. You can see in red in here, Sustainable Local Economy and Sustainable Neighborhood Education and Community, they're all going together. Like every leaf as itself can't work itself alone. It had to work with another leaf, of course, and this is the holistic approach. Community gardens, you can say it's here in nature. They have to work with communities, of course, and also with work with kindergartens and the education system, and working to reduce consumption. And they connect with food and sustainable economy and, of course, health and happiness. So everything that we work on and in the city itself connected to all the leaf itself, and of course the well-being, the one happy person, residents, and good quality of life that we want to give the citizens itself, the residents, of course. So I will start with an overview about an environmental education in Tel Aviv-Jaffa, just really an overview that will give you some sense of a couple of our programs. I will start just with a few words before that. A child who grows up in a sustainable culture becomes an adult who takes responsibility for his or her environment. Accordingly, the Tel Aviv-Jaffa municipality initiates and runs environmental education activities starting at kindergartens with this program that you see, Yarokchik, also known as Greenie, led by Keren Yavetz, a program that promotes environmental and sustainable education in kindergarten, operate in all kindergartens in the city on behalf of the Department of Gardens and in cooperation with other divisions like Shefa is the beautifying division, or also called landscape and gardening division, and of course the Ministry of Education and the local I would call it municipal division of education itself. The program in kindergartens simulate environmental education as a lifestyle in the kindergarten, promote quality of life in the gardens, cultivate and preserve biodiversity, treat the waste and gardens as the same, encourage extracurricular activities, and also engage the parents and the family to participate in all green lifestyles inside the Greenie, the Yarokchik. In elementary school, we operate a green leadership program with the elementary education division, led by Rachel Oppenheim from the elementary education division, and by us together as a partnership. It is a multi-year program that promotes leadership, expanding knowledge, fact-based knowledge, development, environmental awareness, encourage activism and leadership skills, and leading activity in schools in the field, in all fields of environment, behavior change, and in diverse environmental and sustainable areas. In collaboration with elementary, as I said, elementary education division, the program operates in approximately 55 elementary schools in the city. Of course, the corona has changed it, but we are going back to, I hope, quieter times, and we can engage again inside the schools as we used to. In high schools, in 2019, the environmental leadership program with high school was launched in collaboration with Division of High Schools Education and Ministry of Environmental Protection. The basis of the program is based on imparting knowledge about the environmental crisis and ecological footprint in developing awareness of our impact on the environment and its responsibility in providing tools, accompaniment, and motivation for action in schools, community, and neighborhood, of course. Additional program for high schools that we are going to start this year young entrepreneurs, civic research with students, of course, Tamir information programs for treatment of waste, environmental social involvement, and my new favorite, environmental youth council that work on activism in the city itself, as you can see in the pictures. Okay, the main plan. In 2020, the municipality published its climate adaptation action plan, which provides a comprehensive analysis of the primary threats and challenges the city faces and detailed the method of dealing with them, emphasizing a rapid response to help vulnerable population. The municipal is committed to adopting a climate change adaptation program that included preparedness for a rise in average temperature and changes in participation patterns and intensity. Preparing for climate change in 2020, we wrote innovative urban plan that maps the expected climate change and their impact on the city, on the population and the physical environment. The plan provides the municipality with a basket of action that will ensure the existing quality of life in the city, continue, even increase to create good and pleasant living conditions in changing environmental due to climate change, as we hope to do. A large area of team from various units in the municipality have been established who are advancing the plan toward its implementation in the next 10 years. Preparing for the climate change, the urban plan has identified two major challenges, as you can see in the picture. There is a lot of challenges, but two were presented as the major challenges for the coming decade: is the cooling of the city and water management. A variety of tools and action have been established to ensure the continuity and the quality of life in the city despite the climate change. The plan joined the municipality work plan system and will update every year in accordance to existing knowledge and the state implementation. Think Global, Act Local is the urban education program that we prepare for climate change. Actually, to facilitate the educational system participation, understanding the plan and realizing its goal, a program was created to translate these challenges, the plan of the city, as I said before, and aim into learning process developed with the Green Net, הרשת הירוקה in Hebrew, that main approach in the discourse of climate change, pedagogy, head, heart, and hand, relevance, place-based learning, and age-appropriate language, action and active action create a sense of belonging and efficiency. Go quickly. The program opens with getting acquainted with the phenomena of climate change throughout the world and present the anticipated effect of the city and its residents. The program allows students to focus on challenges of cooling the city and the water supplies, as I mentioned before. The final unit encouraged the student to initiate practical projects related to environmental and sustainability, and to pass on this knowledge and information, thus widening the circle of influence to include additional students, their family, the community, the general public. Every school actually choose one of the problems that have before. The problems begin with learning about the changes in the climate, the relation with human life, and the ability of each individual to exert and influence through adopting sustainability way of life. It then focuses on two aspects of climate change. The city is facing a rising in temperature, as I said before, and heat events, and a decline in the amount of rainfalls alongside increases in intensity. The problem will be studied with emphasis on uniqueness of the city. I think this is the most important thing, the connection with the city and the environment that the students live in. Where the school is located, for example, if it's proximately to nature side, the solution based on nature, meteorological station, and so on. Students will also learn about existing solution both in Israel and international solutions. So this could be the start of a new friendship for us. The problem will reach its peak and with the student choose problem to work on and then plan to implement a solution. this portion of the program places emphasis on the student different capability, on optimism and activism. And it's very, very important to encourage the student to go out, think outside the box, outside the classroom, and to be active on the solution. As you can see here, every student can choose a unit. It's a challenge, and then choose a problem, learn about the problem, learn about the problem in the neighborhood, the main principle, and of course, we have in the main principles the vulnerable population and environmental-based solution. Conclusion, the Tel Aviv-Jaffa municipality plans to incorporate the full course of environmental study into its supplementary education program in the city, elementary and high school, beginning in the coming school year. The program includes ongoing guidance for professional team as well as teacher professional development. I didn't have a lot of time, so I hope that I convey my message as well as I could, actually. I would like to thank my partners and my friends in the Sustainability and Environmental Authority who work with professionalism and passion, a lot of passion. The Director of Environmental and Sustainability Authority, Eitan Ben-Ami, the Deputy Director, Vered Crispin Ramati, the Director of Sustainability Unit, Anat Geffen-Segal, my management, thank you very much. The Municipality Division of Education, Rachel Oppenheim, and all our partners, professional supports, and the backwind for Ministry of Environmental Protection. Thank you very much. I hope that you could get all that. I felt like I'm in marathon, so thank you very much. Going back to you. Meredith or Oren?
Thank you so much, Anat. Wonderful. Toda for this wonderful presentation. And now we're moving to my colleague Meredith Mcdermott from the New York City Department of Education.
Thank you, Oren. And it's been fascinating to learn so much from Anat in such a short period of time. So Anat, thank you for sharing. I was taking lots of notes. I am just going to share my screen and let's hope this works. As mentioned, my name is Meredith Mcdermott and I am here today to represent the New York City Department of Education, all nearly 1,900 schools, pre-K through grade 12. Here in New York City, it's the largest public school system in the United States of America. Very proud to represent the Office of Sustainability at the DOE. So if you hear me referring to the DOE, please just know that I am referring to the Department of Education. We use lots of acronyms, as I think everybody's gotten very familiar with. So thank you again for having me. Just to give you a little bit of a sense of context here. So everybody knows New York City is a very, very large city. I believe as a comparative number, Tel Aviv, I believe you said was just over 460,000 residents. I believe as of 2021, New York City is just under 9 million across our 5 boroughs and many wonderful diverse neighborhoods. At the Department of Education, we have just over 1.1 million students. We have about 160,000 employees. I believe the current number for teachers is about 90,000 teachers. So sort of staggering numbers when you put them, especially when you put them on a screen. Every time I go over this, I still have that reaction of, wow, it's a pretty large, it's a vast, vast system. So just under 1,900 schools, that is in just under 1,500 buildings. We have many, many schools. So the discrepancy there is just we have many facilities where multiple schools will share the same building. So that sort of explains that. There are many school systems overseas and certainly in America that have that situation, especially in dense urban areas. So that equates to about 131 million or 12.1 million square meters. So it's a lot of facility space to manage. It also is a very large contingency of people, again, across this very, very wide age spectrum as well. So we wanted to dig in a little bit. Oren had mentioned at the beginning, talking a little bit more about agency. And I do not get a chance to really investigate this topic, you know, in depth. And so it is, as a comparative case study with Tel Aviv, we are finding that there's a lot of things to compare and contrast. There's a lot more similarities than one might expect. So here in New York City, we have a very interesting case of what we call mayoral control. So for those of you friends joining from overseas, you might not be familiar with the term mayor. A mayor is just our head elected official in charge of our municipality. So our mayor here has full control over the New York City Department of Education, along with other municipal agencies. And so what does this mean for our public school system? It means that the mayor themselves, upon election, will appoint what we call chancellor. So the chancellor is, again, our top official in charge of all of the New York City Department of Education. It's our head person. So the mayor gets to identify and select the chancellor. They are not elected to that position. They are placed in that position. The mayor now also appoints most of the panel for education policy, which is essentially our board of education. This used to comprise all of the sort of top representation and decision-making for the agency. It is now through the chancellor, coupled with this panel for education policy. Again, they are mostly not elected officials. They are placed there by the mayor themselves. So there are also many education advisors that serve out of City Hall, or that, you know, municipal kind of lead agency, that are really serving the educational agenda that the mayor sets. So that can have a lot of benefits. It can also have some tricky situations because we don't have elected representatives heading our things. The decisions can ultimately come down to one person, the mayor in charge of the entire municipality. So what does this mean for sustainability at our public schools? It helps to establish a few things within the Department of Education. What really started sustainability efforts here at the DOE were a couple of local policies. So one of them, Local Law 44, that is the city's recycling law, saying everybody has to recycle as a standard operating procedure. So in order for that to happen across 1,500 buildings, nearly 1,900 public schools, there had to be some order set in place. That is what led to the creation of an organizational policy called Chancellor's Regulation A850. This gave us the platform to work with school principals to identify and designate what's called a sustainability coordinator at every single school. In about little less than half of any designated sustainability coordinator, it is usually a teacher, somebody who has a full-time job already. It can either be a teacher, it can be another school administrator, it cannot be the principal or head of school. It can be an assistant principal, and it can be anybody else in the school except the principal or the custodian engineer, which is essentially the facility manager. So these policies help to establish sustainability as a need and a priority within the organization. My office, the Office of Sustainability, is located within the Division of School Facilities. So just remember that. We are in the school facilities. We are not in the entire arm of the organization that deals with teaching and learning. However, it is imperative that we connect robustly to all layers and levels of the organization in order to truly do sustainability work. So next we have climate policy. We do not need to know every single policy here in New York City. The main thing to note here is that we have an extensive number of local laws that are really focused on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. That is the pinnacle goal We have lots of shorter term, midterm, and of course, longer term goals that really establish these ambitious priorities and reduction targets where we are trying to achieve carbon neutrality by the year 2050. So you'll see on the screen here a couple of these local laws, some shorter term goals, 40% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2025. That is in the very near future. 50% by 2030, and so on and so forth. As part of that, we're also committed as a city to 100% clean energy by the year 2050, which of course goes hand in hand with that emissions reduction target. My office also works across some of these other local laws that are listed, but again, all of this is to sort of set the stage to say, these are sort of top of the line priorities when it comes to sustainability, climate policy for the entirety of New York City. Here at the Department of Education, many of our goals, they all fall in line. We are responsible and accountable for all policy goals set forth by the mayor's office. All those goals that you just saw, they apply here as well. I've included some more specifics here across our organization. My office does such things as we work on one of the nation's largest solar photovoltaic array installation programs, meaning we're putting solar panels on as many rooftops and other areas as possible. We are working on other energy efficiency and energy resilience programs. One of them is called demand response, where if our electrical grid is being stressed out during periods of peak demand, we have to do things to mitigate that stress. And we do it through some shutdown protocol that we call our demand response program. We're also committed to zero waste, compliance with recycling, organics or commercial composting programs for food scraps, eliminate and reduce food waste and all waste where possible, a green infrastructure and stormwater mitigation. These are very important things, water management in New York City. I'm sure some of you saw recent pictures of Hurricane Ida, the effects on our infrastructure and population. Those are images that really instill sustainability and resilience programs and policies here in the city. We're all living and seeing and breathing these things. Ways that we do that, again, we're supporting school gardens, hoping to see more green roofs on top of our buildings where possible. And really supporting things that are kind of centered around nature as a classroom. So outdoor learning and things of that nature. That's gotten very, very important. No more time than before this last year during COVID and lockdown and having to spend a lot of time indoors. Outdoor learning and connection to nature has never been more important. So, it behooves me to say, these goals are established, if you notice that they are in line with the other priorities as mentioned, but typically in the city of New York, priority areas are really things that trace back to areas or laws that have funding. So things that are funded or are in the potential works for getting funding, typically we have to utilize those levers to enact programs, support, and change in our schools. So does local policy really matter? Does local policy really equate to sustainability in general? And does it equate to sustainability in our schools? My thought on the matter is that no, it does not. It certainly does help. It does not mean that at every single one of our thousands of schools across our tens of thousands of employees and over 1 million students, that sustainability is something that is known, understood, let alone practiced and implemented. Our approach as an office is to really act upon this idea that schools are an essential element as part of our social infrastructure, as referenced to the New York sociologist Eric Kleinenberg. So how can we activate schools as social infrastructure to mitigate climate impacts and risk? Our tactical approach is really to offer and support as many robust and meaningful programs around policy goals as possible. So this is something that is sort of our way of practice. We know that we're in facilities and operations. What are some things that we're able to do, that we have to do as a part of facilities and operations, that we can then layer educational programs and outreach to provide meaningful support to our educators and our students, again, using all of these things as leverage to sort of get past that barrier of entry. So does this create sustainability on its own? Again, no, it does not. We are trying to internally as an organization, so we were just talking about external influences. Internally as an organization, how can we connect sustainability to every single organizational priority and stakeholder group to lend more context and practicality to every stakeholder? How does this impact me? How do I incorporate this into my job, into my roles and responsibility? Can I do that? Where does it land? We have to do that as often and as robustly as possible to really meet people where they are, to make that transformative change. A couple of these examples of organizational priorities: looking at the whole child, meeting all needs of every student equally. How can we address all student needs? Keep them safe, educated, engaged. All of these things are of extreme importance for this organizational approach. Having culturally responsive, sustaining education. How can we really incorporate and integrate the voice and perspective of all of our many wonderful, diverse students and educators? So this is just to show you that we really do mean it when we say we are trying to take into account all of our key stakeholders across all of our schools: students, teachers, sustainability coordinators, our custodian engineers, our facility managers, our network of wonderful partner organizations, both nonprofit and city agency, our school communities. You'll see a couple of examples here. Please, you'll be able to get this afterwards. Just want to call out a few. We really are, even though we're traditionally in facilities and operations, because of our wonderful partner organizations, we get to enact and activate many wonderful programs across really interesting areas, such as music and the arts. We partner with a fantastic organization, Clean Green Music Machine, on a program called Our Future. They work with professional musicians to create songs and perform them live with a professional music mentor. We would never be able to do that if it wasn't for an organization like that. We provide workforce development and job training for high school students in areas of clean energy. We also are doing many other programs for teachers so that they are able to have enrichment and networking opportunities themselves. We also do technical and specialized trainings for all of our facility staff as well. So climate education, a big win a couple of years ago. Just very quickly, New York City in 2019 updated a policy called One NYC 2050, goals for 2050 across sustainability categories. In there was included language to expand opportunities for sustainability literacy for educators and students. Does that mean that it happens everywhere? Once again, no, it does not. So we take that and we build upon it. We collaborate and partner to advance and prepare our educators and our students for content and real life issues that are upon us. This chart in front of you here is actually from Oren. Oren and his team at TeachersCollege has investigated and really done some in-depth analysis of a lot of our sustainability coordinator data over the last several years. So this is a really, really interesting thing. This really personifies one of our main issues. Why are teachers, especially teachers, why are they not all teaching about climate change in every single classroom for every single student? We are still battling this. It's not related to the subject I teach. I don't feel prepared. I don't have the materials. I am not comfortable teaching this content. I'm not prepared to engage in this topic. Students are not ready. And maybe some people, although here it says 0%, there is fortunately in New York City, it's a very progressive town. Most people are acknowledging at this point that climate change is happening. So what do we do? Last year, we started a tremendous teacher leadership program. We are essentially trying to create space for teachers to lead on this topic. We are not the experts. Teachers are our experts. Climate education at New York City, we have to start somewhere. So we partnered with some offices in the Division of Teaching and Learning, specifically the science team out of the STEM office, the science, technology, engineering, and math. Last year, we worked with 35 educators. Also, there was a school principal involved as well, to really try to start figuring out how can the New York City Department of Education take very, very progressive steps to transform the organization to one that addresses climate education in every single classroom. We were able to get funding for these teachers so that we could give them a financial incentive in order to join us. All of the participants started off not knowing that we had funding for it. We had to secure it, and then we got to give them a happy surprise. So just want to put some of these goals up on the screen, but you'll see we are trying to really ultimately, it's very simple, catalyze the organization to this change where we're integrating climate education. That is going to be it for me. Thank you all.
Okay, so we had a wonderful opportunity to hear about what is happening into these amazing cities. We have a couple of questions already from the audience, but I would like to start with, in the spirit of dialogue and partnerships between the two cities, I would like to start with a question from Anat to Meredith, and then from Meredith to Anat. And let's try to be short with our questions and answers, so we have time to engage the audience. Go ahead, Anat.
Okay. Meredith, was wonderful, very, very interesting to hear about all, actually the amount and the large scales that you work on. It sounds impossible to me, so I'm at awe. I will just quickly ask you, you said that you have policy goals and then you choose programs that support these goals. So I wonder if you have also like innovators in the community that you support, like bottom up, and not just the goals that you represent yourself, something from the ground up.
Thank you for asking that question, and it's really, really important to address that. Though we have a policy context, in my heart of hearts, really I'm a grassroots person. So really it is, how can we build a network upon much more of a grassroots approach? Community building, working with schools, identifying schools that really are kind of beacons of hope, that act as hubs of sustainability for other schools, and then working to connect educators, students, staff from school to school and sharing tips, best practices. One example of a way, we have a program, it's our Solar Career and Technical Education program. We're working with the city's clean energy goals, saying, okay, the city wants to have lots of solar energy. We have more school rooftops than anything. So we're putting a lot of solar on top of school rooftops. People can't see solar panels on a roof. How can we connect our stakeholders? So what we did is we worked with a local nonprofit organization called Solar One, and we presented a proposal to get funding to create a free solar education program for any teacher at any grade level in the city. They do not have to have solar on their school. But even cooler, we created a job training program for high school students that are currently doing an engineering or construction course, so that they can use solar and clean energy as their lens for learning. We have then worked with these students going through the program to get professional and nationally recognized certifications so that they are able to get gainful employment in these sectors, connecting them with industry professionals in the field to get paid internships and real life experience. We don't do that from a top-down approach. We have done it from the complete inverse, working ground up to connect the policy to the people that we're really trying to instill these practices in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anat. Do you have another question, Anat?
No, I thought we could hear from the audience, but I don't think they have enough time.
So let's give Meredith an opportunity to ask you, Anat, a quick question.
I wanted to, you spoke about a lot of really interesting things, examples of your student leadership programs. So your Think Global, Act Local, your green leadership with elementary, and I love the kindergarten one, the Greenie program. How are you able to, knowing that kindergartners, so referencing your Greenie program specifically, how are you able to really integrate sustainability and the importance of it and really the leadership of it with such young people?
Okay, by answering, thank you for the question, Meredith. By answering that, I will actually say what Karen Yavet, she is the leader of the kindergarten program, and she will answer you better than me, but they actually have a professional study for the kindergartners, the teachers, and the leader in the community that connect them with the subject, and then they really implement this knowledge. And actually, they also have tmicha. You have back from the Minister of Education and Minister of Environmental Protection, and they have like green gardens, kindergartens, and they have some categories they have to work on, like a small nature site, place-based learning, a lot of family and community events they have to go on. And actually there is a really a whole, as you said in Hebrew and the Jewish community say a whole Torah. Okay, if you have you have a really, it's a whole science of learning how to convey this message to the kindergartens, and we have the professional team for that. But they actually really intelligent treatment of reduction and reuse and recycle. They have encouraging extracurricular activity in the gardens, in public gardens. They, as I said before, they use the community to convey this message and to work with them and to, as from the ground, you know, just touching and feeling and learning about that. And there is a lot to say, but after that, thank you.
So thank you so much, Anat, for the quick response to Meredith. I'll just make a quick comment that the four of us might want to meet sometime next week or in the coming weeks to figure out how we are going to document this wonderful conversation, because there is a lot to learn when you compare cities other than nation states. And there is a lot of ideas that came here from the discussion about policy as practice, different way of knowing how to promote sustainability. So this is great. But let's move quickly to a lot of questions that we received. I have 17 minutes to cover a lot of questions. So here we go. First of all, if you all can tell us very quickly, how do your agency introduce the schools, introduce the program on environmental and sustainability education to the schools? Is it voluntary or they have to take it? Let's start with Anat. Voluntary or is it mandatory?
No, it's voluntary. The management of the school is can choose to do this program if it's the young leaders or any other programs, and it decide itself if she can take the programs of sustainability and environment or cultivate gardens in the schools itself. So it's not mandatory, not from the city. I hope it will be.
Okay.
This is my very short answer.
Thank you.
I would say so. There is no one set sustainability curriculum, right? Sustainability is really more, we see it as being something that really needs to be integrated into every subject area, every grade level. every area of study. And that is one of its biggest challenges, right? It's represented through the challenge of climate education. We say we feel this urgency to have schools really incorporating climate education content. It cannot just be in one classroom type. It cannot just be in one subject area with one grade level type of teacher. It has to be at all. The question gets to be, how do we do that? How do we help prepare teachers by really getting them prepared not only for professional development, but through aligning with standards, educational standards that are required of them. So it's trying to match these things and then having more people really sort of opt in. But the best way to do it here is through educational standards.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So the next or follow-up question on that is, let's say a school is interested. Where do they get the funding to actually do this kind of work? What is the difference between Tel Aviv and New York in the funding climate? Anat.
Okay, so the funding is coming from the city, but the city itself get the funding from, as I said before, the Ministry of Environmental Protection. They have a calling call every year or every 3 years, and you have to give the programs that you want to convey to the students and you want to learn at the students. You need to, sell this and to think about innovative way to go through these programs, of course, with all age levels and areas in Tel Aviv. So the school itself, it's get direct payments, if you can say, if it's through the educational system in the city or through us, the Environmental and Protection Authority, Sustainability Authority. So
great. Thank you, Anat. Meredith?
I would say, my follow-up question to you would say funding for what? So we're talking, if you say, does a school get funding? I have to say funding for what? Are we talking, does a school have a particular area of interest or focus that they can really have more of a refined ask? So if we're talking professional learning opportunities, workshops, enrichment for teachers, there are numerous opportunities to plug into. My office hosts a bunch, so do many of our nonprofit partners. There's many programs that they can take part in that do not cost any money, really at all. So, or are we talking about a construction project? Are we talking about installing energy efficient boilers? Are we talking about installing a green roof? Funding for those types of what we call capital projects or construction projects, those are obviously much larger dollar figures where typically we'd have to work with the school construction authority, probably local officials in order to fundraise, et cetera, et cetera. Those can take longer, require more money. If we're talking equipment or supplies, things like recycling bins, things like steam traps for custodians, that's all, my office provides many grant opportunities throughout each school year that pretty much any school stakeholder can take part of. One program is really for educators and administrators, student facing, and then we also have a whole opportunity for custodian engineers for technical support. So lots of ways.
Thank you, Meredith. Yeah, she actually said a lot of things that are similar in Tel Aviv, but I just wanted to clarify, we don't give money to the schools directly, of course. It's by project and by innovative ideas and by asking, it's not that no one would understand that I give money, no. So I don't have the money myself, and it's all, of course, going through how you say it, programs and ask by ask, but not, or by grants, but of course not in direct way. All the infrastructure like solar panel in the roof, it's inside our division, but it's a different kind of implementation of the money itself. So that's it.
And that's a very important clarification. So thank you, Anat.
Of course, I'm sorry. Maybe it's my English and the late hour.
It's good. So one of the themes that is coming in the question, and it's something that I held in many other conferences, is what is the best way to introduce climate change to students? Some educators believe that this is really a science education project. Others believe that it should come through social studies or arts and humanities. From your perspective, doing this kind of work for a long time in different settings, what do you think is the best practice? Let's start with Meredith.
Well, unfortunately, I'll be taking the most difficult tactic, which is to say that climate education, again, science, of course, very understandable. Historically, at least in the United States, a lot of content really is derived or driven by science for climate. I think we are at the point now where we need a lot more action. So it cannot just be in science programs. We are now living in a time when youth are more engaged in these topics than ever before. Students want to take action. They want their futures to be protected. They see climate change as a threat to that. So if we're just talking to them at specific grade levels and specific subject areas infrequently, we are not instilling the level of knowledge that really today's society is requiring, and will continue and increasingly continue to demand from our youth. So social studies, civics, math, science, again, we're talking innovation, technology, engineering, any subject area, also language, culturally based programs as well. So I really truly believe that integration of climate content in all subject areas is the way that we have to go in order to address all of our students.
Thank you.
What she said. I'm really agree with you, Meredith. We are in our professional development that we are doing for teaching staff, actually ongoing professional development. We are talking with sociologic teachers, civic science teachers, geography, and of course science. But in my belief, it's supposed to be from all over the map, you know. Also from, we have what's called that learning of history of the earth, not just geography, history, and like Bible studies. Also, I have teachers that teach Bible studies, and they teach about loving the country, loving the earth, you know, understanding the earth and the environment in such belief. And they talk about true Bible study, talk about this. So for each student, you have to have a different approach, and a good teacher, and we have the best teacher. Thanks you, teachers that are here. We have teachers that can see what the audience, what the people, what the students want, and then implement it. It can be activism, like learn by doing, or learn by project, or learn by place. And it could be from science, but to civic learning. So,
okay.
As she said.
So in addition to what you both agreed, that we need to infuse the topic through different subjects in the curriculum, there is also the aspect of how the school as an organization behave, right? We want to model pro-environmental behavior in the school, so that's why it's important to have the solar panel, the recycling bins, etc., and then to talk about it with kids. What about the broader community? What about parents, grandparents, broader community? How do you engage them in this important process? Let's start with Anat.
Okay, so parents actually in Tel Aviv, especially in some neighborhoods, parents are more involved in the climate education, climate change programs or activities. There is the Parents for Climate, you know, this program. It's like started with Friday for Climate, and there is a lot of, I think they are more involved and more want to make an impact in this subject in schools. So they have a lot of power. And if they hear me right now, I think some of them are, they have a lot of power in schools itself. Actually, when the school is self-managed and have a lot of open opportunity, he listening to the community, he listening to the parents, and they have a lot to say. And a lot of time we need to say, as an educational system or the authority, we need to say, okay, the parents is there, we are here, but let's try to hear them. And we have a sustainability coordinator work in the neighborhood, and they actually represent the parents, and we are representing the school, and then we want to come together and to convey this message to the board and the administration in the school. So always community have influence in our schools and in our city. I think it's one of the best things in here. It could be very, very tough to work with, but I think it's very good for us. Yeah.
Thank you. Meredith?
Yeah, I agree completely. Parents can be a real agent of change for and with our schools, which is really, really important. One of the things, though, that I do want to note as just a potential hazard with that, though we really take into account and really want to note parents' perspectives, not every school has an actively engaged parent community, and many schools, really that can be seen as a real luxury. So if we have neighborhoods that have, parents that are working numerous jobs in order to put food on the table, etc., we don't want to work less with those schools because there's not an active parent community. In fact, I would say that my office really tries to prioritize those schools that might not have that level or layer of support. So that's something that, especially in New York City, we really have to acknowledge and address, because we do not want to be inequitable, and that is a very real thing. There are parent groups, lots of parent groups. Most schools have an active, or maybe it's not that active, but they have a parent group that will hold regular meetings. I've gone to many of those upon invitation from schools. At the organization level, there are also convenings of large parent groups. It doesn't happen as often now, especially with COVID. However, I've presented to those in the past. I would love an opportunity to do it again, because again, parents, we see them as agents of change. This is also when partner organizations are key. An example, convening of parents, kind of a notification, like awareness building exercise, was an event that Oren and TeachersCollege put on a couple years ago, specifically for parents in sustainability in our public schools. So meeting people, we presented, spoke, met, et cetera. So things like that are also really important. Community engagement events and things.
Great, thank you so much. First of all, I want to apologize ahead of time. We won't be able to cover all the questions in the chat. They are wonderful, and I'm going to make sure that we reach out to the people with some answers. Some of them are very technical or informational, but I do want to end up with a question about partnerships. What kind of partnerships do you create in your ecosystem with business, city, academia, teacher preparation institutions, etc.? What kind of partnership do we need to create in order to really promote climate change education and to upscale it across the city? And I apologize ahead of time, we need to have very quick responses. So let's start with Meredith.
We need more partners within my organization across different areas of study. I mentioned that we partner with the science team, the STEM team. We're working on many other office representations, student wellness, nutrition education, things like civics, social studies, English language arts, etc. So internal partnerships can help us to propagate this throughout the system, to meet resource gaps that educators are experiencing. That's really the only way. External partnerships, there are many that we need, and there are many that we have. We always need more.
Wonderful. Anat?
So in internal partnership, we have, I think, partnership with all the division inside the municipality of Tel Aviv itself. And of course, we, in the other outer, I'm sorry, there is, in the partnership with other forms of, just a second. Partnership with different partners in the city. We have, of course, partners inside the business area. We have green label. We have the green label categories that actually reduced the carbon footprints of a truck going inside the city, or energy consumption, and so forth. And we have a partnership inside the schools, that the schools get compost from the coffee just near them, and they're going to have plants, very endemic flowers and geophytes, flowers near the school, so they connect with the community. And we have partners with the health and of course the health community about what you eat in the school. Okay, so you have to have like very harsh categories and to meet some standards of what to bring in the school. Yeah. Not just the plastic you put, you wrap the food in, just what the food is. So we have the program, it's called Beteavon, Bon Appetit, that work with the health ministry and the education system in here, and it's with Milan programs and all of that and so forth. I have a lot to say, but I'm sorry.
That's fine.
We'd be out of time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Meredith and Anat. It was an honor and a pleasure to share the stage with you. Back to you, Shahar.
Thank you, Oren. So first of all, thank you all, Anat, Meredith, and Oren. This was very illuminating and educating for us all. And with the amount of chat going on, you could see people were totally engaged, both here and on the Facebook platform. So thank you, and thank the audience who joined us and stayed throughout. I want to tell you that in a few, in the near future, we're gonna have part 2 event for this event. If we're now focusing on the public education and climate education and public education system, we'll have a climate education in higher education system event. So this to be continued. And I hope to see everyone on other JCRC events. You're all in our list now, and you will be receiving our correspondence, and hopefully you'll want to join more educational opportunities that we provide. Thank you for the co-sponsors of the event, and I wish you all good night in Israel and good day for the rest of us here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.